It is 2023. There were a lot of questions of who Khamzat Chimaev was when he first came into the UFC. He came into the UFC in 2020. The question was always like, wait till he gets tested, wait till he fights a ranked contender. Well, Chimaev has done that now, numerous times. From 170 to 185. He's passed all tests with flying colors, with a couple of speed bumps here and there. Whatever you think of him, you have to agree that he is one of the most entertaining fighters in all of the UFC. And with that, Chimaev has earned a cult-like following. Everyone seems to be in love with this guy right now. And as he gets higher in the rankings, of course, he will get his title shot eventually. But right now, it doesn't seem anytime soon. Sean Strickland, the champion, is set to fight Dricus du Plessis at UFC 297. Chimaev recently beat Kamaru Usman, and he's entered the top 10 middleweight rankings on the UFC website. According to the website, he's number 8, and there are plenty of contenders on top of him. But this is a part of the video where we have to critique boards. I believe people get a little too ahead of themselves when it comes to Khamzat Chimaev. You see, in my opinion, Khamzat Chimaev has yet to be a middleweight. He's beaten a lot of guys at 170 pounds, not at 185. I mean, let's look through it. He beat Kevin Holland, who moved down to 170 recently after losing a bunch of fights at 185. He beat Gilbert Burns, who came up at 155 and moved up to 170. And now he's beating Kamaru Usman, who was one of the best 170 pounders ever, but still 170 pounder. But I have to give him credit, even though he's beating guys lighter than him, he has looked impressive doing so. But the question still lays out there. What happens when he fights a legit 185er? We were going to see that with Paulo Costa, a man that's probably physically bigger than him. What if he doesn't have the strength to take a guy like that down? What if the 85ers can stop his takedown because of the strength? There's a lot of questions, and that's for another video. Besides him looking invincible and beating all these guys, there is one chink in his armor that I've recently seen that we're going to talk about today that makes me believe that he's not going to be a champion at 185. See, it's not the striking, even though it's a little sus. It's not the big guys at 185 that he'll have to take down. It's Chimaev's stamina. I am concerned about Chimaev when he gets a main event spot. You see, Chimaev, in my opinion, does not have what it takes to go into a main event fight for 5 rounds and be successful. And I have many reasons to believe this. Let's talk about his fight experience. For all who don't know, fight experience is obviously when you're sparring or you're fighting and you're getting that tempo under your belt. Just like when a fighter practices a single leg in the wrestling room, he gets faster with it, he gets better at it, he gets more explosive with it, stronger with it. I believe fight experience is very similar to that. You see, when fighters fight over and over again, they develop habits and they ultimately develop their style, how they approach a fight, whether that's fast or slow tempo. It's very similar to somebody learning how to jab or learning a take. And Chimaev, in my opinion, through his fight experience from the time he's an amateur, has been a really quick starter and a very bad finisher. What I mean by this is that he starts very hard. You see, having fight experience and learning fight experience, and experiencing fight experience, you learn how to manage your energy throughout a fight. You learn your style in a way, when to attack and when to be passive, when to defend. And from the beginning of Chimaev's career, he's been a very fast starter. Very, very fast starter. We're talking about a guy with 13 fights, professional MMA fights. 8 of those fights have come with first round finishes. And he stopped a total of 11 fighters in those 18 fights, in those 13 fights. So Chimaev, from the beginning, has been a very, very fast starter. You know, when I first saw him fight against Gilbert Burns and he gassed out around the 2nd to 3rd round, I thought it was maybe because he decided to stand up with Gilbert Burns. But after recently seeing this last fight with Kamaru Usman, I see that's not the case. You see, when he fought Gilbert Burns, I thought maybe he decided to stand up, but when I rewatched the fight, I realized that Gilbert Burns, being a great Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu champion on the ground, Chimaev wanted no part of that, and he did try to take him down at the beginning of the fight. Well, when he fought Usman, he came out guns blazing like he did against Kevin Holland, trying to take Usman down and submit him, and Usman survived. I mean, Usman got taken down right away. He got put on his back. Chimaev took his back a few times, threatened with submissions, and just dominated one of the greatest wrestlers at 170 pounds ever on the ground. Well, after that round, doing what he loves, which is wrestling, he was gassed. Round 2 came up. Usman was starting to outstrike Chimaev. It became a slugfest. Chimaev got a Hail Mary takedown and was able to win that round as well. But then the third round came up, and Chimaev was not threatening with the takedowns anymore or with the hands. He only had 2 rounds in him. Maybe just one, because the second round, like I said, it was a Hail Mary dive to a double leg takedown that got Usman on his back. But towards the end of the fight, Usman was in control. Usman, who had a 10 days notice, a guy who has very bad knees. He's not going to be running. He's not going to be doing HIIT to be able to get in shape that fast. He needs longer than most fighters, period. Not just that, Usman is a very, very slow starter. He's a 5-round fighter. He starts to get going in the 4th and 5th round. But he had a short time against Chimaev, and even though he had a short time, smaller man, Usman, the 170-pounder, still outstruck Chimaev in the 2nd and 3rd round. To me, it tells me that Chimaev is not more than a first-round fighter, to be honest. He reminds me of a fighter that came a long time ago, Hector Lombard, who would come out guns blazing, knocking dudes out in the 1st round, but nothing to show in the 2nd and 3rd round. Luckily, Chimaev is not a pure striker like Hector was, so he's able to rely on the wrestling here and there to take a break, take a breather. But it is a scary strategy, and I believe with the fight experience, like I talked about earlier, he's not going to change. You see, when fighters have been exposed to one way of fighting for years and years, it's very hard to change that type of fighter. So even though Chimaev eventually might fight the champion, Sean Strickland, who is a 5-round fighter, who does try to get you tired, who tries to put the pressure on you, might not have that much success as he would have if he would have fought Izzy.